Hello, and today I will be showing you how to make a basic dissolve shader using Unity's shader graph. First of all, you need to create your project. I myself am using Unity version 2021.3.7, and you will need to make a project using the Universal Render Pipeline preset. Now, the first thing you want to do when you come into Unity is to go to your Window tab and open the Package Manager. From the Package Manager, you'll want to go to the Unity registry and search for Shader Graph and install it. After you've installed Shader Graph, you want to create a sphere in your scene. Then in your project menu, you will want to go to wherever you wish for your shaders to be, and you'll want to create shader graph, and you'll want to create a lit shader graph under Universal Render Pipeline. You can then change the name of your shader. For my one here, I am calling it a dissolve shader, and you will then need to open it, and it will open the shader graph menu. And the first thing you'll want to do is go over to Graph Settings, turn on Allow Material Override. You'll then want to turn on Alpha Clipping, and that will set up your shader so that it can work properly. You will then first want to create a color node, and this will be the base color of the object. You also want to change it to HDR mode, and I'm just going to set this to a light gray for the moment. And you'll then need to add this into your scene and plug it into the base color. Now next we will want to set up the actual dissolve effect itself. So you want to create a float node, and I'm going to call this dissolve. You will also want to create a simple noise, and I'll just drag this off to the side. You will plug your simple noise into your alpha channel, and this will cut holes into the sphere, as you can see here in the preview. But these are way too many, and we cannot control these at the moment. So we'll add in the dissolve, and we will turn it into a slider so we can control it easier. And we will drag this into our scene and plug it into the alpha clip threshold. Right now it is completely blank. That is because I have my default set to nothing. But I will first make another float, and I will call this the noise scale. And right here I've plugged it into the wrong channel. You want to plug it into the scale and not into the UV. I would also recommend changing your default on your dissolve node to say 0.3, 0.5, anything below 1, so that way you can see the dissolve taking effect. You also have to remember to have your scale plugged into the right channel, otherwise it will not work. We'd also want your default for the noise scale to be around 30 to 50. It's up to your preference on how you want it to look. Next, we are going to set up a glowing rim around the outside of the dissolve, just to add a bit more coolness to the dissolve. So we will first want to make a subtract node, and we want to plug our output of the simple noise into the A channel of the subtract. You then want to create a step node, and you want to plug the output of the subtract into the B, and you want to plug the dissolve into the A of the step node. You will then want to create a 1 minus. I just close that up there to maximize space. And you will then want to create a multiply node. And right now I'm just going to move everything a bit to the side to give myself a bit more space to work with. We then want to plug the multiply into the emission. But at the moment, nothing is actually happening because we do not have any color and we do not have the step taking effect. So we need to create two nodes. First, we will need to make a color node and call it edge color. We need to make a float node as well and call it edge width. And make sure for your color you turn it into a HDR, and I'm just going to set it as a light aqua, and I will plug that into the A of the multiply node, and you will then take the edge width and plug that into the B of the subtract node. I'm going to make it a slider for convenience, and I'm just going to set it as 0.1. No, I'm probably going to set it as 0.01 as the maximum. Yes. And I think I put it as 0.05. That's a decent effect right there. And since I made it a slider, I can affect it very easily. Also, you can increase the intensity of your edge color to add more of a glowing effect, which can look pretty cool in some circumstances. And you can mess around with this as much as you want because the shader itself is practically done at this point. And now we're going to need to set up the shader so that it can be applied to our object in scene. But first I'm just going to make this sphere a bit bigger so I can see it easier in my game view. Now I'm going to need to create a material that we can apply the shader to. And up on the top of the inspector with the shader with the material selected, we can select the shader, and you have to click on shader graph. And I'm going to use dissolve shader, which is the one I made earlier. Right now nothing's happened because I forgot to save the asset. You want to make sure to do this constantly. And now the shader should be applied. But right now it is not working properly. And that is because the alpha clipping is not turned on. And once that's turned on, it has turned out very good. But you can only see the side of the sphere that you are looking at. The back face is being cold. If you want to have it look like this, that is perfectly fine, but if you want to show the back face, you need to go back into your shader settings. You need to open up the graph settings in the graph inspector. You then need to go to render face, and you can select it to both. I will also have to change it to render both sides within the material itself. And here you go, you have your completed dissolve shader with all of your components controllable, and you can mess around with the colors as much as you like to try and make some cool looking effects. You can also mess with the scale of the noise, but besides that, you can do whatever you want. Have fun.